Hello, crypto community. Jeff Kirdeikis here, streaming to you on a massively green day with one of my super good buddies and the founder of Bomb Token, Zach Dash. Zach, thanks for swinging by and having a chat on this crazy day.
I appreciate it, Jeff. You know that we've known each other since 2017, and we've been thinking about doing a live stream chat like this, and it's been way too long.
Yeah, we always have great chats on the phone, but this is the first time I'm like, okay, great, I want to sit down with him. And we had this planned 3 days ago. We're like, we'll sit down, just kind of, ramble about crypto, maybe some crypto economics, tokenomics, things like that. And then boom, for me, 12 hours ago or so, just this massive explosion from Bitcoin over 5,000. So we got some juice to talk about today.
Yeah, it's been crazy, a little unexpected on my end. I did not see that coming at all. And then just to kind of give another little teaser, I have some questions on my end that Jeff has no idea that I would like to ask him. So if you want to see Jeff kind of on the hot seat here and have no idea what's coming his way, definitely kind of stay around for that.
All right, so jumping into it, man. We just got $100 million buy order placed across 3 exchanges. I think it was Coinbase, Kraken, and Bitstamp. Pumped the crypto market by $20 million or $20 billion, and $500 million got liquidated on BitMEX, which is crazy. Do you think this is sustainable? What do you think about all this?
Oh man, So in terms of sustainable for the short term, no. It was interesting to give kind of a little new juice into the market that I think could spur it. I don't know if it was intentional or not. I was listening to Ivan on Tech this morning, who has a lot of really good thoughts. And one thing that he said is this could be, insider knowledge about the industry that somebody knew, an announcement with the government or some positive news about crypto, or it could be something negative in the public sector with the stocks or stuff like that, to where, either of those could be a catalyst for what happened. That being said, I still am kind of in the boat that we're going to retrace down a little, but for the short term, it's good to have a little kick of endorphins back in our systems and seeing green again, even if it's just for a day. And even if your posts on Facebook are the ones that kicked it off, it's good to see.
Yeah, so for anyone who's watching who doesn't understand the reference, I made a post about the cryptocurrency investing group, and our members since really February have just been on a steady decline. People aren't joining, we're banning people, cleaning the quality of the group. And it was about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago where we saw this epic bottom, and we started to climb out of it. For the first time, our group saw an increase in members. And so I made a post on the group, and I was like, hey, we're seeing it. And I made a little fake TA line and a chart with an arrow going straight up. And then within 12 hours, we boosted. So I definitely don't think it had anything to do with cryptocurrency investing, but that's an awesome coincidence.
Yeah, we need to start doing some technical analysis on the statistics of the group. That would be awesome.
Well, I think there's a lot of things on market sentiment. And if you look at Google Trends, for example, you can almost predate every crypto rise using Google Trends. And when the search terms start rising, that's when the price booms. And so it's actually, it's not necessarily surprising that the group numbers correlated precisely with the, the rise of Bitcoin. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors like Bitcoin halving and things like that. But it's just interesting how I'm curious why the group numbers started rising, because there wasn't necessarily anything out of the ordinary,
Yeah, actually, for the first time today, I haven't heard any of my friends talking about crypto in 3 months. And then today I had 2 or 3 messages from my friends that aren't in the crypto, and they're like, hey, are you still with Bitcoin? And so you're right. I feel like this kind of caught people's attention, but I have no idea. I didn't feel like there was any big news worth getting in. Maybe it's in a different part of the world that there's something going on that I don't know about, but you're right. I didn't really feel like that, but it's interesting what you talk about with Google Trends, because logically it makes sense that somebody's going to search something before they buy it, right? And they're not going to buy it right away. They're going to research it for a week. So yeah, I definitely might think about using Google Trends a little more whenever I'm looking into it.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting though, just to even think, okay, why was that trend going up? We have Fidelity, custody, sure, and Facebook is getting into crypto, JP Morgan, coin. But it hasn't been anything that's been necessarily that. Well, I mean, all 3 of those are monumental. but it's just surprising to see that rise. You mentioned that you think that it could be insider knowledge on in the crypto space, like something happening. If you had to do some Alex Jones conspiracy theory, what would that be?
I'll get my hat on, my little crazy hat. The biggest thing that I could think of is if there was some news that came out, and this is the first time I'm thinking of this, so don't hold this answer, near and dear to my heart. But if there's something news that we came out about the big cryptocurrency wallets, the Bitcoins that have millions of them with Craig Wright or whatever it may be, if there's some news about those are locked up for longer or those are lost, anything that could mean that we have a total supply that's much less than we thought it was going to be, that could send a catalyst. But that's just complete speculation. I think there would have had to been something with a big account where we didn't really know. We didn't really know anything about that. It could be also on the institutional side, a big player just joined. Obviously, that's the most likely situation that we don't know about. So yeah, it's I guess the most confusing part is if they knew about this, why would they do a market buy order rather than an OTC trade and get a better deal? And the only thing that I can think of is if OTC takes some time to find a buyer and a seller, right? So if they really wanted to get in on it before an OTC trade was available and before this news spread, they might have just clicked buy order. And I think I read that it was on 3 different exchanges. So they were somewhat thinking about it. I don't know. It's conspiracy, but I have no idea. No,
it's true. I was actually just chatting with one guy the other day who works as a middleman broker for OTC trades. And he said, 95% of the trades that I try to put together just don't work because they're always chicken and egg. Like, you come to me, no, you come to me. And so, if someone is looking to get in right away, as crazy as it seems, throwing down an instant market buy.
Yeah. And at some point in time, I was talking to my buddy, Vincent, I think it's in the CCI group, and he's really into the OTC trades. And, everyone says that the OTC trade, or some people say the OTC trade is kind of keeping the market from going up or down because everything is done. But at some point in time, even in an OTC environment, there's going to be more buyers and sellers and buyers. And what he was telling me was that the mining people that were they were losing money on their mining, had to sell off a bunch of Bitcoin on OTC. At some point in time, those sellers are going to bottom out, just like in the regular market. And the buyers are going to have to come in with no place to go. So that maybe there was no opportunities to find any buyers on the or sellers on the OTC, So.
It definitely, I fully agree with that. Everyone's like, oh, OTC is not moving the markets. It's like, well, it's still very much contributing to that buy and sell pressure. So even though it's maybe not, on the front end, it's definitely making some moves on the back end.
For sure.
So we did a poll in the group too on, what's next. We said, okay, is 6K going to hit next, or is 3K going to hit next? We had about 450 people say 6K was hitting next, including myself, and 255 people, including yourself, said 3K was hitting next.
Yeah, so it's always funny because you can see the pictures of your friends and what they're voting for. Yeah. So before I vote, I always wait to see where's Jeff's face going to come up in here, and I always try to do the opposite before you go. No, but yeah, I really do think it's gonna. I'll let you finish your question, but yeah, that was an interesting kind of poll that you had there.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the question. I'm just curious, what, obviously, my belief is, or thought is, there could be very realistically, a retest of 42, just, create a little bit of support in the near term. But I feel like we have been jonesing for a bullish breakout. And this has been the longest bear market in Bitcoin history. And, if you're just looking at the chart, we have been plagued by the Bart Simpson effect, where you're just going straight up, straight across, and straight down. Yeah. And if you look at November-ish, when we were at 64 and change, we went straight down. And then we've been flatlining the bottom since. And so I'm optimistic for a Bart Simpson all the way up to 64. But I'm certainly curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so obviously, so I can see both sides. I'm never in the side of it's going to the moon or it's going down, and I try to be pretty logical in that. The one thing that I heard that really kind of tested my thinking is I think it's Charlie Shrem. Is his name. He was in an interview on the CCT commercial, on the CCT group with Joe, who I know you're friends with as well, Joe Blackburn. And I love talking to people that have been in it longer than myself. And so Charlie's been in it from like literally day 10 or something. He was in the first 10 people. So he's seen these ups and downs and ups and downs. And one thing he said was, in every single bear market, there was, by the time that Bitcoin had a bull run, that complete just hope in Bitcoin was lost. Like everybody was just like devastated. And I do know there's still a lot of people that have lost hope in Bitcoin. I personally haven't for the long term, but I still, maybe it's just because of the groups that I'm in, I still see so many people that think it's going to moon. And so I still think it's just crazy. I still don't feel like we've hit to that level of this is not ever going up again. And I think what we're going to happen is we're going to go up. We might even go up to 55 and then come down again. And then I really just think we just need to lose more hope before it goes up again. I hope I'm wrong. And then side note, I'm kind of enjoying the bear market. I don't know about you. I know you're creating things. I'm creating things. And I like the bear market. I feel like that's when the true players or developers or builders come out and they build crazy stuff. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Definitely, yeah. And like bear market is so fantastic because the pressure is off. You have time. You're not trying to rush to, catch up to the masses. So it's been fantastic. And to make, more stacking on your portfolio and your investments. So no question about that. For the hope in Bitcoin lost, I tend to agree in a lot of the senses that, we need this feeling of despair and just everything is gone. And, the shorts have just squeezed every last inch out of us that they possibly can. On the other side, though, if we're looking at Bitcoin just as a standalone, because, stocks and all these things are another story, but Bitcoin hasn't had the foundational backing or, adoption and build that in any other time in history. If we're looking from 2008 up until the 2014, 2015 era, it's crashed, but it's really just been this kind of arbitrary ideology with not a lot else going on. Ethereum didn't even come until 2015. There are a few other coins and things like that. I think Ripple was in earlier, but it just, I feel like for myself, if Bitcoin was just a standalone, there was no other cryptocurrency, there was no supply chain management, there were no smart contract platforms, I'd potentially, be in a state of despair too. Like, this thing might not go, this experiment of global currency, it might not happen. But this time around, the reason why I have hope and why I feel like a lot of people aren't jumping off the bandwagon and saying it's never going back up is because, not necessarily because of Bitcoin itself, but I feel because of blockchain space as a whole, it's not going anywhere. And I think a lot of people feel that, and Bitcoin has just kind of been their ringleader. And they're like, okay, well, if blockchain isn't going anywhere, we need our leader, and we appoint Bitcoin. It's the easiest way to get money into the blockchain space. It's the easiest way to trade, to transfer. Maybe not the fastest and cheapest, but it's kind of like it's our homeboy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you make a really good point that, and I didn't even think about this. I think this is the first bear market to where people aren't fearful of, will this survive? And they're more fearful of like, will this go to 250K? Like it's like this crypto in some manner is here. These bigger players would not be making splashes if it weren't, for something that's legitimate. So you're right. I think this is a bear market where the question is not, will this survive? It's how much money do I want to put into it? And how much can I risk to believe? How much do I believe in it? So I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. Oh man, I believe in it a little bit too much. I think I have like over 100%. I'm in debt in fiat, and then everything else is in crypto. So I have not learned from Warren Buffett and the great investors of diversity.
This is the time. We're both decently young, right? So this is the time to be somewhat risky. That being said, I had to really mitigate my risk because I got married actually 8 months ago in a day. So yesterday was
congrats, man.
Thanks, man. And so I had to, adult a little, step out a little still, but then every dollar that I had to take out, I like put twice as many of my efforts in my creation skills or creation abilities into this. So everything I pull out, I try to put back in with some effort.
Well, I think that's perfectly said. Yeah, you can take out, some currencies so you can make life happen. But yeah, you've been putting in epic work in your projects, and I think that's just as much or more of a monetary investment, I guess you could say. And yeah, the one that you've been working on right now, which I think is just so cool, and also this like big social experiment bomb token. For anyone who doesn't know about bomb, you want to give it a quick rundown?
Yeah, man, I love talking about it. Just to give some context on it, the marketing term that we try to use is the world's first self-destructing currency. And the reason that we call it that is 1% of every transaction that you send is actually destroyed, burned forever. So it's an ERC20 token, and it just has a function in its smart contract that says, when I send this, 1% is burned. And so it's really counterintuitive thinking. It might be the dumbest idea in the world, but people are enjoying it. I remember when I brought it to Jeff originally, Jeff's like, I don't know about this. And so I didn't know about it either. But yeah, just to give context on why it's so intriguing to me, when I was 5 years old, I had these stack of quarters, and I was the hoarder. I just had these quarters, and I would collect them. I put them in this little basketball piggy jar. And one day I got up to 100 quarters, and have no idea what happened to those quarters. But anyways, I look back at how much those quarters would be worth today, and I did the math on inflation, and it was somewhere like $60 to $50, maybe even less. But just showing like the buying power that you have in your fiat money goes down over time, whether you know it or not, especially in other countries. In the US, it's only about 2.5% every year. So every year, whether you know it or not, if you're not getting a 2.5% raise, you're in theory losing money, or you're losing buying power. So I've always been obsessed with inflation. And so this is why Bitcoin is so interesting to me as well, as it has a flat supply. So we're definitely not the first people to try to do a flat supply or a depreciating supply by any means. But, Bitcoin, for the first time, nobody could just print something out of thin air. And so it was really interesting to see how, Satoshi Nakamoto attempted to do that. And so what we're trying to do with Bomb is just take it one step further, and we're just exaggerating the point of burning to where there's 1 million tokens in existence at the beginning, and since that we launched in January 15th, over 10,000 bombs have been burned. And so the point of this is not to try to create the next biggest project. It is getting a really good following, which is awesome. Our Telegram community has over 20,000 people. Our email, list has over 20,000 people. People are intrigued about this, but the main goal is just to be a social experiment that people can say, hey, this worked, this didn't work, why didn't this work? And as they're creating tokens in the future, their own projects, if they can even reference Bomb to say, here's what deflationary currencies can do, here are the benefits, here are the weaknesses, which we've noticed a lot of each. If people can take this and run with it in their own projects, and people think of Bomb as the first people to do it, I would love for that. And last side note, just before I kind of shoot it back to you, I just like to say with Bomb that we're definitely don't champion the first people to do burning mechanisms. Maker is my first my favorite project in the world. Maker DAO has its own burning mechanism that inspired a lot of what was Bomb. Even Ripple, as much as I don't like XRP, has a burn mechanism in there. So we don't claim to be the first people to do a deflationary type currency. We just try to exaggerate it for points of case studies.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting too, because you on one side of the spectrum you have fiat government currency, somewhere in the middle is Bitcoin, and then on the far other end of the spectrum you have Bomb. And so it's very cool because I feel like you can extrapolate what happens with Bomb currency and kind of associate that to Bitcoin as well. So it is, in my mind, like, hey, what's going on with Bomb in a way does represent, how people respond to a deflationary currency. And in your case, like hyper deflationary, Bitcoin has like a stable amount, but it is so interesting to see, in the, I guess you could say, world outside crypto, how everything is losing so much of its buying power, as you say. And, people look at Venezuela, which is just, people have truckfuls of money that they're using as water slides, and
Yeah, I saw it on Reddit
money's,
today. It was just floating in the streets, like they didn't
yeah,
even.
in the gutters there. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, quick question for you, and this is kind of on the whole deflationary side of things, which really makes me think. At some point in time, more Bitcoin is going to be lost or burned every day than is mined.
Yeah.
And so I had this debate with somebody, and I don't want to get into this debate here because I feel like there's two sides to it. But I asked people, do you think Bitcoin is inflationary or deflationary or flat? And most people, when I ask them, they think Bitcoin is a deflationary currency. And while I do think it will be in the future, whenever there's more that are being burned or lost every day than are mined, it's currently more are mined. So in theory, again, I'm not an economics major, but in theory, it is an inflationary in terms of total supply. When do you think, or do you think there is already more being lost than being mined every day? Do you think we're at that inflection point? And if so, like what year do you see that happening?
Do you have the exact numbers on how many Bitcoins are being created daily right now?
I'm actually writing an article. I think it's like at 4.4% a year or something like that. I need to look into it, but we're definitely, I think, over the half has already been mined, right? So
did a quick Google here. 144 Bitcoins are mined on average every day. So I definitely don't think we're at that inflection point. And if we are, people are stupid.
Yeah, that's true. I think it has to depend too on like if Satoshi's coins are lost forever, that has more impact on it as well.
Sure.
But yeah, it's intriguing to me because if we think Bitcoin is scarce now, think of whenever it's going down, it's deflating. It's just going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't, I think, flatline until around 2000, the year 2147 or something like that, where we switch over to exclusively transaction fees. And then, but you're right, the inflection point is much before that, because people will start to be losing it. And in my mind, that's almost like a secondary nature thing, because if Bitcoin survives another 10, 15 years in any way, shape, or form, I feel it's going one way or the other. I don't think there's really an option for it to just kind of be like, oh, this thing. Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, he's like, this has I think this is going to be the currency of the internet. And I couldn't agree more. Maybe it's not this widespread global currency that governments are implementing and using because they can't control it, and it's really not in their best interest. But for companies to start accepting cryptocurrency, it's cheaper transaction fees just straight out of the gate than a credit card. Credit cards charging 2-3%, so it makes more sense to accept crypto. And I mean, Bitcoin's maybe not the best one because it's so volatile, for taxation and accounting and all that kind of thing. But you mentioned Maker; they have a great stable coin. There's tons of great stable coins out there that are pretty much instantaneous and free transactions.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see what Maker and Dai is doing. And getting back kind of to Bitcoin, I've had this love-hate relationship with Bitcoin ever since I got in. And so when I first got in, it was like, Bitcoin, I'm excited more about Ethereum. And then I started to really hate Bitcoin because as a currency, I think it's really poor, or at least as it is currently, right before the Lightning Network. I thought it was really poor. I thought there's no way this can survive. And then I realized that there is such thing, in my opinion, as a store of value. That's a digital store of value. And so when I started thinking of it less like trying to be a day-to-day currency and more of a sort of value, I got into more of that love relationship again with Bitcoin. And so I'm still doing this every single day to, can you truly have something that's not being used as a currency to have a store of value? I mean, it's showing it is possible right now. One of my polarizing opinions, and I've told you about this, is I actually think the more that Bitcoin becomes a currency, the less upside it has in terms of price, not value to the world by any means, but in terms of price, the more it tries to be a day-to-day transactional currency, the less upside it'll have on price in the long run, not in the short term. And that was the premise of Bomb too, is I feel like Bitcoin is trying to be both a currency and is trying to be a store of value. And so with Bomb, we are very much like, we don't want to be a transactional currency. We just want to see if it's possible to create a store of value that people actually put their trust in. And so it's like, if we can take one side of the spectrum and exaggerate it, does that work? And so I don't think I mentioned this, but we just airdropped all the Bomb. We just bomb dropped them into the world, and we didn't take a penny for it. All of them were giving away for $0. We'll never accept money for Bomb. That being said, within the first week, people were valuing them at 50 cents, 75 cents, $1. They're down to about like 25 cents right now. But the point is, people, things that they got for free, were able to take something and they associated value with it. And I think of the Bomb experiment, more than deflation, it's the idea of a term that's been around for a while called initial coin distributions. And you see this on EOS right now, but it's just the idea of launching an idea into the world. We had zero capital. We just put in work with Bomb, and it created a market cap of, a quarter $250,000. And so that's more than anything what I think the cryptocurrency industry is going to go to, is rather than these ICOs where you're raising all of this money, you have legal implications. People are going to drop their ideas into the world in the form of tokens, and the market will decide, yes, this is a good idea, or no, this is not a good idea. And I think a lot less people will get wrecked, for lack of better words.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's going to start to be, other options explored outside of ICOs. And, IEOs, initial exchange offerings, are like just a very small iteration on that. But I agree, we're going to start seeing new things because people have seen the facade of ICOs. And that being said, I don't think that day and age is over, because we're always going to get new people in. Just this next wave is going to have a whole new stream of new people. So I think everything's still going to be there. Just like we've created this decentralized society, but now there's still, centralization coming in many aspects.
That was actually going to be one of my my hot seat questions for you, if I can start with one of those. That's good.
Yeah, hit me.
And by the way, I keep looking in the top right. It looks like Bitcoin is like steadily above 5,000 right now. It's making a little.
Oh, hold on. Let me refresh my page.
I have a little tab. Well, I'm actually on.
Okay.
I'm using Coinbase's, which sometimes is a little inflated,
right,
but it's like at 502. If it breaks yesterday's high, I'm interested to see what happens. But anyways, so yeah, my question is, last time that there was a bull run and last time that Bitcoin went up, the altcoin season was just crazy. And I didn't have any Bitcoin during the bull run because I was seeing more gains in altcoins, and they were the more speculative investments, right? But they had the higher highs and the higher lows. I am curious. I do think people are getting smarter with their investments. But you just mentioned as well, there's always going to be new people coming into the industry, so they might make the same mistakes that we saw with the current alt. My theory and my premise is that the alts will see a rise with Bitcoin. They'll all be somewhat tied, but I don't think it'll be to the level that we saw in the first ICO boom. It was something we had never seen before. An ICO, this was a new concept, but now people saw and what happened last time and how Bitcoin went down, 80-something%, but altcoins went down like 96%, or just crazy drop. So I just want your opinion on, do you think people will treat alts the same way they did during the last bull run if there is a future Bitcoin bull run?
Yeah, you bring a strong point that last time it was the first time that altcoins existed, and it was this totally new concept. For myself personally, when I saw Ethereum rolling up into 1,400, a lot of people saying take profits. But in my mind, I'm like, you could, but this is new and it's never been done before. And how big this could get is really limitless. We're creating essentially a new structure for our way to interact. It's a distributed ecosystem. It's Ethereum. It's going to be way more than 1,400. Like what was the market cap then? Whatever it wasn't in the trillions, and which is where I very much expected it to go. And it was the first time, and it was just this emerging explosion. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And everyone's coming out with platform or projects on Ethereum. Nobody's seen them before. There's one that I always come back to. It was like terawatt bulb, and it was decentralizing light bulbs on the blockchain. I was like, this is the word. And they're trying to raise 30 million. I'm like, okay, this is the peak of stupidity and of trying to just harbor people's money in. But it kind of just goes to the point that, like you say, it was new. It was the first time. And that contributed a massive amount to how parabolic we could go, because nobody knew the implications. So this time is different. And so, first thought would be, okay, so then we're not going to be going as high. Altcoins are not going to go as crazy. But, we've been drowning in this sentiment of, Bitcoin maximalism for, about a year now in this massive bear market. And people have just lost faith in altcoins. But in reality, altcoins is, a pretty broad term. There are some high quality altcoins in the ecosystem that potentially could outpace Bitcoin in their market cap value within the next 3 to 5 years. Bitcoin, it's amazing. It's that number one right now. But, as you're talking about, market cap and price action, it might not be a store of value or a currency that becomes number one. It could be a security token issuer. I think security tokens are going to crush every other industry easily within the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so I think, kind of to answer the question in a roundabout way, is I think, terawatt ICO isn't going to see, 100x gains anymore. Mm-hmm. But, legitimate projects, say like either Maker or Ravencoin or other smart contract platforms, I think they're going to go just as parabolic. Actually, let me backtrack that. They're going to go more parabolic than they did before. And I think they're in the Satoshi value, they're going to be higher than the last bull run, not just in USD.
We'll see, man. You know my heart. I mean, I had that website that's still live if anyone wants to check it out, that I haven't updated in a year, called Altcoin Atlas. So I'm obsessed with altcoins in every single way. And I would love to agree with you, but like I still don't know how to value a currency. And so part of BOM that I was trying to create was, whenever I got wrecked in 2018, I started to think like, okay, these coins I truly believe in. They seem low priced. Why are they going down this much? And of course, we look back in hindsight, it's like, oh, they were overvalued, right? But I still look back and I'm trying to figure out, how do we put a price on a value, on a difference between a utility token versus a currency, and what is the formula? Like, people are throwing around different formulas in the industry, and I keep going back down to, we've talked about velocity, right? So the whole premise of BOM is to have the lowest velocity possible. So there's a theory called money valuation, the theory of money valuation. I'm butchering that completely, but I'll put a link after this in there. But it's this formula. It's called MV equals PQ. And I'm not going to get too technical and nerdy on this video, but the point is, the lower a coin or token gets circulated, in theory, it should have a greater price. And so this is a theory, by the way, but whenever I look at the altcoins right now, and there are some that I truly believe in, and so let me find, I'm on CMC right now, and let me just find one, like, okay, Pivx is one that I know decently well, and it has a $58 million market cap. So like a $58 million market cap startup is like pretty legit. Like, they're bringing in revenue. They have a product market fit. Like, whenever you get a startup valuation, you're in like the 3 million range, the 10 million. These companies have 58 million. So maybe I'm just looking at market cap, completely analyzing it differently than a startup would, and thinking they're still overvalued. Maybe it's this liquidity premium that we've talked about. The fact that I can jump in and out of these assets may give them a higher price than, like, if you invest in a startup, your money's locked in there until they IPO or they get acquired, right? So there might be a liquidity premium involved in that, but I'm still looking at some of these. So like Cardano, I love the idea of Cardano, the founder, I'm still intrigued by him and his tweets, but I look at them with a $2.3 billion valuation, and I'm just like, they very well could create that amount of value in the world, but you see their roadmap is 10 years out, and it's just like,
Yeah.
it just makes me think everything seems relatively low right now from where we were, but we thought Bitcoin was low at 6,000. Like, we thought Bitcoin was relatively low. So I just don't want to assume the altcoins are going to make the same push. But I just spoke a lot. I'm going to pause and not try to take over the conversation, but I'm still so perplexed with valuations. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, you bring super good points. And if we're valuing things, strictly on, like, what does Warren Buffett call it? Like his investment style, value investing. That's it. And where you're taking like the revenue of a company versus their market cap, we're out to lunch. Cardano, what revenue has it pulled in? Probably less than $100 realistically. And yeah, you're right. 2.5 billion. It doesn't make any sense. But I think the big differentiating factor here is that it's actually the market cap. It's just kind of this unfortunate or fortunate happenstance that the term coincides with the traditional stock market, because it's not like people are actually holding stocks in these companies at all. If you're holding 10 shares of Cardano, you actually hold none of the company. Cardano could just as well go to, a VC investor, and they could sell their entire project to that VC investor, and in theory leave every single token holder in the dust, because all you had invested in was a piece of utility. And that's the whole SEC argument, like, okay, security utility. Because if you're actually holding a piece of the company, well, then that's security. And all these guys are going to get slammed on securities laws.
Yeah, it's really intriguing. And I see some of these tokens positioned as if you don't need the token to actually do, like, you don't need to hold the token. And people are fixing this with like proof of stake and staking incentives. But there's so many projects out there that I really like. And I love the team. I love the vision. I love the problem they're solving. Just the token, I just can't see a reason people will need to hold this. And if you have no reason to hold it, you're just going to go dump it. And it's just going to be almost adding friction to the whole process, right? So I need to look more into Ripple and XRP. But from my understanding, it's helping cross-border payments, and it's helping the businesses, send. But as soon as they've made that transfer, they can just dump that money into. And so there's no reason for the demand to increase, because the supply will always be there. I'm obsessed with that whole concept. And just one more point that I love about cryptocurrency is when we're trying to value. You mentioned Warren Buffett, and he's doing value analysis, or what did you say he calls it?
Value investing, I believe it is.
So how we interpret value investing, at least from my understanding and the research that I've done, is you look at the revenue, the projections, the profit, all that stuff. What's really cool in Ethereum, let's use Ethereum for example, you don't have, like, the profit is directly correlated to the demand. Profit in cryptocurrency is almost a middleman between the value that you're putting into the world and the value that you're receiving. So to put that more simply, people think that a company needs to make profit. I think a company just needs to add value to the world, and in turn, people will have a bigger demand on it. And so we're so obsessed with where's the profit? Well, the profit is making the world better. And if you make the world better, people are going to demand your service more, and it will be reflected in the price. So that's what I'm super curious about. Do we even need profits for these companies? Can they survive on their own token and without causing too much downward pressure, right? So that's what I'm intrigued. I don't have an answer, but I'm really intrigued with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we can look at Ravencoin as a perfect use case of this, right? They're just all volunteer driven. I don't believe they have any outside funding at all, and it's just all token based. Correct? Yeah.
I haven't done enough research on Raven. I saw somebody on Twitter from Lisk batch kind of give it a thumbs down the other day. But yeah, I think you're exactly what I'm talking about right now, to where a group of people put some value into the world. Other people saw that vision that they were trying to create, and bought
Mm-hmm.
into it, and now they can self-fund themselves through value. And so this goes back to our earlier conversation of like airdropping your idea into the world. Let the market decide if it's a good idea. Use that money, selling off just a little to fund the project, and you can, in theory, create $1 million market cap company overnight,
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And this is, I mean, obviously really close to what you've been doing with Bomb. And, you asked the question, what gives a currency value? Or we were talking about this general concept. And I feel like a big part of it is community and people standing behind a project. If we look at the biggest one, Bitcoin, I feel like it has so much value because its community is so strong. Otherwise people, if nobody had allegiance to a coin or this community feel, there's other coins out there that potentially operate a lot better, a lot faster, cheaper transaction fees with the exact same security. And so being able to build a community like this movement, that's, I feel, where the biggest value comes in.
And that's a great point. And that's something that we've talked about with Bomb Token for a long time is anybody can replicate what we did. It was like 50 lines of code or less. Anybody can create a deflationary currency. But and I had a really good conversation with the founder of Native. I forget his name. If anyone wants to check out Native, but they put all of their focus on communities. And one really good example on a joke coin is Doge, right? So where Doge is not taken seriously by the higher ups, and it's still a meme coin, but it has.
Have you seen the new CEO?
No, I haven't.
Within the last 12 hours, Elon Musk, I think, pretty sure, has changed his Twitter profile to say CEO of Dogecoin. They announced that they were looking for a CEO, and he was like, and somebody tagged Elon Musk, and he's like, Doge is my favorite crypto. I think we're both digging into Twitter to verify this claim right now. But I saw a screenshot of it, and the tweets were real about him loving Doge. But I wonder if he did change it.
That's so funny.
He's all over the place on Twitter.
I wanted to. Elon's a crazy guy to follow, but
it does say former CEO of Dogecoin right on his Twitter profile.
He retired.
That's unreal. Anyway, sorry, you were saying, I just had to jump in. I thought it was the funniest thing.
How can this meme coin create I'm looking at it now, $388 million, but it shows you community, and they're not even developing the tech anymore, from my understanding. The community is what's driving that. So this shows you can have the greatest tech in the world with no community, and it doesn't matter. So with like Bomb, what we're trying to do is like, we just want to create the quirkiest, weirdest community in the world. And that's not you can't replicate that, right? So you can create an Apple computer, but if you don't have the Apple logo, it's not going to have that same feel to it. So I agree with you. Community is what drives so many things. And this was going to be another question I was going to ask you earlier, but this is why I've always been an Ethereum fanboy over any other ones, because that community is the most grassroots. They believe in the vision. They believe in decentralization. And then I've been trying to create some dApps on my end, and I'm looking at EOS for the first time and truly in their code. And I'm like, I actually like the tech on EOS a little, some of the tech on EOS is a little better for what I'm trying to build. And I'm just like stuck. Do I go with the community that I like? I love Vitalik, or do I follow the tech that has more upside in the short term? So that's one thing that I'm trying to do a bit. I know you're an Ethereum homeboy, I think.
It's been an interesting last little while, that's for sure. Like when I first got on the scene, Ethereum was like, if I would have had posters on the wall and little Ethereum like cuddly toys, like that was the level that it was at. But it's been slow to scale, to say the least. And one of the last updates they were going to put out a few months ago, 12 hours before they released it, a third party released that, hey, there's a critical flaw in your system. And they had spent, half a year developing this new upgrade. And so it's just like, it's very concerning, because to go from Ethereum to Ethereum 2.0, it's a totally new platform. It's not like just writing some EIPs and then adding it onto the top. It's kind of changing the foundation. And if you think of it like as a structure, it's pretty hard to change the foundation and just to redo it. They're kind of starting almost from scratch, and so it's tough to kind of for sure still on Team Ethereum. They've been doing great things, but even on the developer side, there have been some, let's say tight hearts on the developer team that just are not pleased with the way things are going. It's becoming too bureaucratic. Nobody wants to push forward changes because no one wants to go out on a limb. So it's, and then I think, okay, well, so then do I start to lean towards other platforms, let's say EOS? And I agree, they do faster transactions, less expensive. And I believe more dApps are running on EOS now than Ethereum.
10 times the amount, which is crazy.
10 times. The thing is, though,
don't quote me on that, but I looked at the activity, and it could even be more than that. But yeah, I mean, it just makes so the big things that are attracting me in my current development. So we talked in the pre-chat about Clover a little, and when I'm doing Clover, the whole concept of it is to create a consumer-facing way to create usernames on the blockchain. And so with that, you need as little friction as possible. And currently, if I create a dApp, and we actually already did developing an ERC 721, which is like a non-fungible token, almost like a CryptoKitty style token. We created this, and just realizing for anybody that I want to create this or to join us in this vision that we have, they have to be able to get MetaMask, be able to have Ethereum, to be able to do all that on EOS. So in Ethereum, the consumer pays the fees. And in the real world, we're not used to paying for anything, Facebook, Twitter, like YouTube, nothing. So on EOS, the costs are on the developer side, which sucks for me because I am developing it, but I would rather have a zero friction where they don't even have to know they're using blockchain and scale it. And so for me, that was a big thing, is the cost is on the developer. Which even though I'm paying it, I prefer that. And then two, how you can update, from my understanding, an EOS smart contract versus when I created Bomb, we had an error in the code, to be honest with you, or we had a potential in the code to where we had to upgrade it, and we had to do a complete hard fork, and it cost a lot of money, and we had to do this and this. And supposedly on EOS, these fixes are easier to do. So again, I am not an 100% Ethereum or 100% EOS, but it's starting to make me really think it's close for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, there's validity to both sides, really. I think the big friction point for me on EOS is the 21 delegate model and just how centralized that is, and the vulnerabilities that it opens up. What was it? 2 months ago, they had a $2 million hack specifically because of that governance model.
I didn't know that. I thought it was an exchange. I didn't know that.
And now you're making me second guess myself, but I'm about 99% sure that it was.
I do know that there was a 13 million EOS hack on BitThumb, but it was an exchange. That was like a week ago or something.
Okay, no, this was longer ago. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. We'll fact check this later.
but to hit on your point, I was worried about that, and then my voice of reason is Ivan on Tech, that young guy on YouTube. I respect his opinion a lot.
Yeah,
and he made the argument that on paper it's more centralized. On paper, EOS is more centralized. 21 delegates, like it's really easy to think that. But he says in practice, because of the way proof of work is with these mining pools, that whenever you're voting on Bitcoin with the governance model by who you put your mining power into. And so
that's true.
If there's 10 to 15 mining pools that are dominating, there's probably even less that are dominating it. That's almost the same as delegated proof of stake. Instead of delegating your you're staking your coins to delegate it, you're delegating your proof of your work to get mining pools. So I'm not saying I completely agree with this, but it was interesting to him to think that in theory, EOS is more centralized. In practice, Ethereum can be more centralized, at least in the current proof of work. Somebody just made in a comment 90,000 active monthly users EOS, 20,000 in ETH. So almost 5K in there, 5 times.
And that happened quick. That was not the state of things 1 year ago. ETH was blowing EOS out of the water. Well, maybe 1 year ago, EOS wasn't even really launched live, but that's crazy.
I had some more questions, but did you have anything on your end?
It's just such an interesting topic to me to see, the back and forth between what people's preferences are, between centralization, transaction speed, governance models, ease of use. And, I don't really think that there's going to be one main platform that comes out on top per se, whether it's like EOS or Ethereum, but it's going to be a collection of a few just based on people's preferences. It almost feels like a political conversation where you have like the conservatives and the liberals, and they both are in a way right in their own perspectives. It's like, okay, well, let's say the conservative wants low taxation. Well, sure, you're right on that. And then the other side wants, help for those who need it. Well, you're right on that too. And so then there's this always conversation flowing in between the two that, and I think that's just where we're at with, EOS, Ethereum, Tron, Neo. They're all just, in my mind, political parties. What's that?
You put Tron in there? Sorry. It's only one that I'm like, I'm trying to say good things about it, but it's hard.
This is the thing. Everyone has their own agenda. Maybe I wouldn't be as pro-Trump as some other people, and a lot of people would cringe at Trump, and potentially I would as well. But some people love him for various reasons, and some people love Justin Sun for various reasons. So
yeah,
the big thing that I've been learning, especially doing just always engaging with the public, is I had to learn that everybody's opinion is right. Not necessarily something that I agree with, but it's right for them, and Justin Sun is amazing. He's created all this great stuff. If that's what you believe, man, I have to respect that, because there's no way that I can. It's not in my place to try to change somebody's opinion, if that makes any sense.
That's definitely something I think we've matured on, or I've attempted to mature on in CCI over the last year and a half. Is just I've not always been the best with my opinions, but it's hard. It was definitely hard, because I agree with you on the opinionated stuff. I think the only thing that me and you both try to fight back in the group where it's like clearly factually wrong, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, that was not what happened, where we try to push back. But for the most part, I think we're both for freedom of speech and trying to fit people's narrative. Kind of last thing on, I think you brought up a good point on philosophy, that there's going to be these different sides to the story. And so I think one really interesting thing going on, and you're dealing this with Uptrennd right now, is data. And so you're trying to figure out, do people really care about their data, or do they just say that they care? And so at the end of the day, their actions are going to speak louder than words. And I think it's becoming cool to say that you're deleting Facebook, and it's become like a cool thing to do, and you're putting it to the man. But 90% of the world, do they care? Maybe it'll take some more failure. It's like where you see something keep happening and losing, and they're getting hacked and all these things, and then like, will there be a point where it's like, okay, I do care about my data, I'm going to use something else? Same thing in the crypto world. We have different values, and so people say they care about decentralization, but if EOS offers 10 times cheaper and faster, how much do you care about it? So there will be those crazy diehard, decentralize everything or nothing. And there's going to be something like, I don't care. So if I had to choose, I would say currently 99% of the world doesn't care about decentralization unless something major happens where it's like, this is important,
And I fully agree with you. It's like there's this guise of, yes, we really do care. But then, my phone right now, it's listening to every word that I say, and I could say, okay, Google, and then it's going to pop right on. There we go. Yeah. Oh, there it popped on after I said, okay, Google. So it's hearing our whole conversation. And I'm sure, like, if we talk about cat litter right now, it's going to show me stuff about cat litter. So it's like, people don't really care in general. I fully agree. And the thing that my big issue with EOS, though, is that governance model has kind of had a hole poked in it so early. And that hack one of the guys in the comments chimed in. He's like, yeah, that hack was due to the 21 delegates. And I didn't see any updates on how that's been remedied since that time happened. So I agree, it's a really interesting point that you bring about the mining is like, yeah, we do have 15 mining pools, and in a way they are voters and can collude very much like EOS can. And so, maybe it is just as centralized as EOS, but it hasn't had this big security flaw yet. As with the mining, you actually need to own the mining rigs, whereas on EOS, it's more so these votes that can flippantly switch from one to the other. And
it takes more effort to cheat the system, I think, both from a physical, like, hardware point of view, and also from a cost point of view, and time and effort as well. I think my only counter, and I feel like I'm on EOS side right now, which I'm not, but my only counter would be Ethereum did have a big hack, really big, bigger than EOS in the early days, and it survived, right? Right. Whenever they split into Ethereum Classic, and Ethereum is actually the one that is the hacked version, or the fixed hack version. So I think a lot of these will stumble out of the gates. One thing that I did see on EOS, whenever I was reading about it, is the RAM that it costs to. So on EOS, the developer has to pay for RAM to execute a function, and to execute a function on RAM on EOS versus going to Amazon. I'll look this up maybe the people in the comments. We have some really helpful people in the comments here. But I read somewhere it cost 100,000 times more money to run a function on EOS than Amazon Cloud. Like, what? So they had to fix this. The RAM was just crazy expensive, and they found that one of the functions was supposed to be set at 50%, and it was set at 0.5%. So it's just crazy how these multi-billion dollar companies can make mistakes with like one line of code, and it makes me feel less bad about my mistakes in life.
Oh my God, I know, and it's like it's so true that, and they are going to be stumbling out of the blocks. I feel though like I just expect more from them. Like you mentioned, multi-billion. How much did EOS raise again?
Like 4 billion.
What was the 4 billion, and to like have these massive errors, and oh my God, it really makes me shake my head. Like, I'd expect, projects, like Bomb or Uptrend. Yeah, we're stumbling out of the gates. We're shoestringing this. This is like an experiment. But you raise $4 billion and have some of the best developers in the world on your project. Like, maybe it's just an over expectation, but I don't know, guys, get it together.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything to say on that other than I think one thing that is cool that I've always connected with you on is we have, I think we have somewhat sympathy for entrepreneurs or creators to like give them the benefit of the doubt when other people are kind of like on the sidelines, just like, there's one of those stories about the person who actually goes and fights in the ring is the one who gets, the glory. But anyways, it's always been interesting. I think I've sympathized with people who make mistakes as entrepreneurs or creators just because of how easy it is to make them. Now, if they continue to do that over and over and over again, you'll lose trust over time. But for the most part, I'm pretty forgiving.
Yeah, and that's fair. And like you say, if they make the mistakes once, the chances of them making it again are very, very small, I believe. And so, yeah, even if these massive corporations like EOS, which is kind of hilarious that I just kind of Freudian slipped a corporation onto them, but they will continue to improve. So it will be interesting to see how things evolve and shift. And I think super important, and I'm trying to sink into this more as well, but to be versatile and adaptable to my viewpoints on what is a relevant currency or a relevant project in the crypto space. When EOS first released their memorandum or their rules that was saying, hey, we can ban any member, we can mute any member, we can delete any member, and I'm pretty sure that's still where it's at. But I just was like, oh, fuck that project, like dumping all my coins, this is brutal. But I
think I remember that Facebook rant that you had. I remember that. You're like, I'm done with
this. Yeah. Anyways, just being able to shift and adapt, because you're right, EOS does have its place in the crypto space, and it's serving a great function for a lot of projects. So
yeah, it can fail overnight. So I'm trying to hedge my bets here. So
Yeah. Well, we got one fun comment. I just want to touch on this super quick. I don't want to touch on Tron, but I'd love for us to rip on the BitTorrent project. What are your thoughts on BitTorrent and its utility?
Um, Man, I wish I would have researched the BitTorrent before this conversation because I feel like it's something I'd be passionate or interested in how the token is actually used. But
Hmm.
my thoughts are more on the how the money was raised for it through a EI initial exchange offering, and seems like a money grab. I would love to hear your thoughts for, and I'll add some color to it.
Okay. Well, so the main utility of the token is that you get priority bandwidth when you're torrenting. So essentially, you can torrent faster, but you have to pay for it. And there was this great comment that happened in Facebook that said, hold on, I'm now paying to torrent when the reason that I'm torrenting is that I wanted to do it for free. And they're like, let me walk you through the steps. If I want to get priority torrents, I'm going to have to go to Coinbase, buy some Bitcoin, take the Bitcoin, transfer it to Binance, then trade it on Binance to BitTorrent. Then from BitTorrent, then I'm going to transfer it to this platform, and then I'm going to use it. It's like a 6-7 step process.
So that you can get a Seinfeld episode, season 3, episode 4, like low quality. That's what you're downloading with your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or your
Yeah, you're getting like a speed increase on just such a, we're talking about user friction. You're talking like with Clover, for example, making it easier. What a brutal system for somebody to make it faster. Unless, of course, and I'm not 100% sure if this exists, but you could just buy the token right on the platform, which would certainly help.
Even so, this is where I think I didn't even know it was on CoinMarketCap. So it's ranked 53. It has a $140 million market cap. So this is a really good example. Let's take a step back and say, if somebody created a service, a non-cryptocurrency service, and they're like, hey, we're gonna charge people on BitTorrent that are torrenting things, and we're gonna make an extra few dollars here and there on them. Would it be a $140 million company? Like, I don't think so. So it's just like, it puts in perspective. You put a crypto on it, and it just balloons.
Oh, for sure. And then also to touch on, the community part again. You have massive community who rides the hype on the Tron team, and then you got massive community behind BitTorrent. So these like two big hype players coming together, just it automatically created such a massive valuation. They hit 1 billion within the first few days, didn't they? In the market cap.
I see the highest price on here is 0.001, but maybe mine's not going back far enough. But yeah, it was definitely high.
Yeah, that's what I have as well. 0.001, which is about 10 times higher, more than 10 times higher than what it is right now. And right now it's at 100 million. So it was at $1 billion company, fresh out of the gates.
Yeah, that's crazy, and I'm sure you saw his Twitter debacle as well with the giving a Tesla away.
I definitely saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing. Reminds me of the Wan chain mess up where they're like,
or Walton chain.
Yeah, Walton chain. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I won.
Yeah. That's good. You had some questions before we went on a huge side tangent.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out because I could talk to you all day. I'm trying to figure out if we should have a follow-up where I just grill you the whole time. And maybe we can ask people in the comments. But yeah, I think that we've had a good amount of time here, and we can have one episode where I just ask you questions the whole time and hold your feet to the fire.
Love it. Sounds good. Yeah, if that works for me, man. Well, this was a great chat. That was a lot of fun. So let's finish it off with a little prediction here. What's going to be happening in the short, medium term future?
To Bitcoin or the market?
Just the market in general.
So my prediction has been that we pop between 5,500 and 3,500 all the way until September is when I'm thinking we don't go on a bull run. Has been something that I tried to think about like 3 or 4 months ago. So that's my prediction is popping around in this little zone here for another 4 or 5 months.
I think that's a safe bet right there.
Yeah, but that's a very large range. If you want me to say it's going to be 7,000 in 7 months and 7 days from now, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Dash, always a pleasure to chat with you, man. I love it.
Yeah, let's do this again later, man.
Sounds good.